Glenn Powell's dog, Hot Brisket, appears in the movie as both an official cast member and official set mascot.
Being like Rain Man of weather. Just like looking at shit, being like, oh, you'll be fine. Oh, no, it's going to turn. Get me to the center of the storm, Kate. You have to get me there.
Welcome to We're Too Literary, the show where we identify as experts.
But we're not.
As we deep dive into the world of cinema, uncovering plot holes, dissecting character arcs, laughing at the absurdities, and spoiling the shit out of everything you love and hold dear. I'm your host, Kenny.
And I'm Jonathan. And each week we'll take a critical yet humorous look at both the classics and the latest releases. Whether you're a film fanatic or love a good laugh, join us as we navigate the twists and turns of movie magic gone awry and give you our ideas on how we'd like to do it. Are our brains broke?
Or are we just too literary?
Too literary.
Welcome back, everybody, to another week of We're Too Literary. We're happy to have you here as we dive into a movie that I've actually been super looking forward to the opportunity to talk about. We're talking about Twisters, the sequel to the 1996 Twister.
I love when a movie does a sequel with just adding an S.
Yeah.
So far, it's never let me down.
And yeah, no, it straight up worked. I mean, it straight up worked.
I've only got two examples of this, but they both work for me.
Yeah.
Alien and Aliens.
Oh, of course. Yep.
And now Twister and Twisters.
Yeah.
Maybe there's more out there, but I sure as shit don't know them.
That is totally fair, though. That was, yeah. I like that. They didn't do that with, I guess isn't there a Predators?
No, it was Predator 2.
Was it just Predator 2? I think.
Let's turn to the Googles.
They did come out with a Predators later.
Well, okay. Yes. I want to say.
But it was not a direct sequel.
That's 2010. And that had Topher Grace in it and Adrian Brody. That's what I was trying to think of.
Yep. It was quite the weird cast, but
yeah, and the movie was all right. Yeah. But it was not a original Predator or sequel Predators. It was
not
Predator
like Alien,
and Predator
Aliens.
2.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite count. And really the movie was middling at best.
But yeah, no, you're not wrong. I think that those are two great examples because, frankly, I loved this movie. Twisters was awesome. I'm really trying to say that completely unbiased.
Are you being successful is the question.
I think I am. I think that I can fairly say that I am being unbiased about this because it was just good. Tell me I'm wrong.
No, it was actually quite entertaining. I mean,
see?
And it's not like a schlocky B movie. It was just really well done, enjoyable, great cast, great chemistry. I mean, I'm just enjoying Glenn Powell. I think it's his name. Is it Glenn Powell? Yeah, it's Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's he did fine. Who do they compare him to right now? It's not.
What do you mean?
Is it Gyllenhaal? No, it's not Gyllenhaal. It's Gosling. I remember seeing a couple pieces out there that were comparing the two of them that they look very similar. But yeah, no, he was fun. He came, his character Tyler came in acting pretty cocky. He's the tornado wrangler. He's the one that's all up in his cowboy getup throughout the movie, and that's his whole shtick. He is the tornado wrangler. And at first, they didn't lean into it too heavily, but I was definitely on the I don't want to like you camp to start off with. And
really,
yeah. I think being cocky in the face of like an actual tornado isn't a great look. Like that fearlessness attitude, I don't know. It's just never really been one of those attitudes that I'm like, you're going to be fun. I'm going to like you. It's usually like, you're going to get yourself killed and that's going to It's gonna bum a lot of people out.
Probably. And there
I don't
were
know.
quite a few people who do die in the movie, at least up front.
Only in the beginning. Only in
Yeah.
the beginning. I was actually kind of impressed that the body count in this movie was as low as it was. I was kind of
Okay.
expecting them
Well,
to amp it up a little bit.
there's more people that die throughout, just no main characters. I mean,
Yes.
there's the scumbag and his girlfriend, who, by the way, if I remember correctly, that's Bill Paxton's son.
The scumbag and his girlfriend.
Yeah, the one at the motel.
Where they're trying to get into the pool and he goes and he runs off and gets in the car like a dummy because everybody knows that a car is the worst possible place to be.
Unless you got, a magic truck with like earth augers to just dig into the ground and hold you there.
That's so cool though. I did not realize that was Paxton's son. I knew that Paxton's son was in the movie. I just didn't realize that he was. Yeah, the rodeo scene. So if you've all have seen like the trailer or if you've seen the movie, like at the very least the trailer, then you've probably seen the clips about the tornado hitting the rodeo. They're all at a rodeo and they have very little warning about the coming storm and tornado. Kate, she's the true tornado whisperer. She's got like this whole
It's like I don't have a lot of issues with the movie. That's probably one of them. Her magic whispering, like I can see it on the horizon.
She was just
there, and it just whoosh.
Look, she
Not
was just
quite that bad.
very, very adept at understanding the differences that happen in the weather at a moment's notice. And I wish I had
I
that
call
skill.
bullshit. I
I
call
mean,
bullshit.
it's the barometric pressure and the humidity and other meteorology words. So anyway, she senses something's going on and the tornado's coming and they're trying to get everybody to evacuate, run away, get to safety, get to cover. And she runs into this building and the clerk's there and she's like telling the clerk, like, you got a basement, you got, something somewhere where we can get underground. And this girl's behind her just acting so shitty for no reason other than to just be shitty because she's just like, oh, you don't have to worry, there's not a tornado, this kind of shit happens all the time, and it's always it's
70% of
always a
them are
false
fake.
alarm. Yeah, it's always a false alarm. Just all of this stuff is happening outside, right? And yet she's just acting like, nah, it's fine. It's like, how many of those times did you ever go, yeah, it didn't turn out to be anything meaningful, but I also didn't see people running outside? Just saying.
Agreed. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah. No wonder they died.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was just a funny scene, at least for me, because of the whole just staunch resolve that there was no tornado, and then all of a sudden there's a tornado. Oh man, and she screams so hard, she's just like, "There's a tornado!" And yeah, it was just such a ridiculous moment, but I appreciated it. It was, there's always got to be the one skeptic. Anyway, Twisters was just all around fun. I do agree that there was a little bit of this is kind of silly having this special ability. Kate's the only survivor of her friends in the beginning of this movie. She's in college being a storm chaser. It's like a meteorology project that they're finishing up, and
Going for some science grant, yeah.
all but one of her friends die.
No. Yeah. Right. All but one friend dies.
Yep.
Yeah.
One of the friends that
Right?
died was
Like in
actually
her
her
face, like
boyfriend.
she sees it all.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Just
Which
really sets the stage for the trauma she's suffering from. How
Mhm.
we're going to just pull her back into this life and really kind of dig it in a little bit more.
Now, mind you, it's years later, and 5 years later, and so not that feels like a lot of time to really get over the fact that you lost 3 of your friends, but m maybe it's enough time to I don't know. Yeah, so flashing forward 5 years later, she's at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the NOAA, and she totally pulled a desk job. She was like, I'm gonna just do what I can from behind a desk. This seems like a safer bet.
Being the fucking, like, Rain Man of weather. Just, like, looking at shit being like, "Oh, you'll be fine. Oh, no, it's gonna turn." Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah. Having that kind of
Uh,
ability, I would absolutely be out there storm chasing all the time. It would be great. I
really?
honestly, yes.
Really?
After seeing Twister 1, the first Twister, I was like, man, it would be awesome to be a storm chaser. But I never really looked into like what career path I needed to take. I didn't know that it fell under meteorology because I never looked into meteorology. So yeah, I'd
It's
be
never too late to start. Just
I
start a
became a tech
YouTube
guy
channel.
instead. Oh, I
Yeah.
don't have that ability though. I can't just look out the window and go, "Ooh, I felt the pressure drop. Things are going down, people."
Have you ever tried kidding? How do you know?
I don't. I don't because I
See?
haven't tried.
See? You don't know.
You never know. I'll let you guys know if I end up happening to be able to detect when the weather's going to change around me. I'll give it a whirl and I'll let y'all know.
Go chase a storm. Let's do it that way.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, with her having her ability to do her shenanigans, I some suspension of disbelief, right? You gotta let that be. You gotta you gotta just accept the fact that there's gonna be some things in this movie that just don't make sense. And
Fair, fair. Within
yeah,
reason, but fair.
yeah. There were a few things that, like the quick time travel between a few different locations. There was just some instantaneous like transitions that were just like, I don't really think that based on
Okay.
when things occurred, this makes sense. But I
You
mean,
know,
nitpicky.
again, not wrong, but there's movies out there that are so much more atrocious.
Oh, so
Like
bad about it. Yeah.
watching Godzilla New Empire, that was what the fuck. That was just fucking not okay. It was
there
ridiculous.
there was definitely some moments of that were like, okay, but it's a monster movie. You gotta just expect that nothing's real. Um,
We'll get into that when we
no,
talk about it.
yes, for sure. Now, with just like a couple of other honorable mentions here, the things that I found amusing was that they tried to be like safety accurate in the beginning. At a couple of points, you full on see them wearing like goggles when they're outside the vehicles in the middle of the storm. It totally makes sense because you got to protect
Yes.
them eyeballs so that you can see what the hell you're doing while you're out there.
And shit's flinging around, so yeah,
And
makes
the
sense.
rest of the movie, it happened like two, maybe three times. And then for the rest of the movie, it was just nope. No,
So would you say that corresponds to when she switches teams and joins the Storm Chasers?
it might. But
Well,
even still,
those cowboys don't believe in safety. You're not
listen,
gonna infringe on their fucking rights.
listen.
They
All
will
right.
chase a storm however they damn well please.
Okay, listen. There's also this EF1 rated truck. You can't tell me that that's not up to a safety standard that would also include wearing basic eyewear in your vehicle, regardless or outside of it. But for that
The
matter,
only
you'd
thing they care
think,
about is not getting flung around. That's their
okay,
standard.
but I will admit it was a cool car. The one other issue that I took with it was it didn't look like it had a roll cage. And I'm just trying to imagine a scenario where this car, this truck had the ability to drill into the ground to fasten them into place. Like you watch it dig into the ground and then the suspension pulls when it locks into place. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, so this car is going to sit put and it's going to be great. I can totally respect that. But where was the roll cage? Because if it did get lifted out of the ground, if it turned out to be an EF2 or greater destructive twister, what were you going to do when your car flips around? And I mean, by the end of the movie, was Kate in a storm par truck? No, she was in
No.
Tyler's truck. She was in Tyler's truck,
Correct.
and that car took a beating. Which, ignoring the fact that the car like instantly appeared repaired at the airport after that scene, but
Yeah.
either
Well,
way,
so I'm gonna correct you on
go for
this.
it. Was there a roll
I
cage?
mean, depending how you look at it, I think the intention was to give you the idea that there is a roll cage attached to the outside of the truck.
Is that what they're trying to get at there? Okay,
I mean, if you look at 'em like,
maybe.
"Oh, I can
I'll
kinda
pull up
see
a
that's
picture.
a bit of a roll cage." probably not a real roll cage. But yeah, if you
No,
look
I'm
at it,
talking
it's
like
got like tubular like bracing and like a shell around the outside. Pull up a truck or pull up a
yeah, I'm
picture.
pulling it
Look up
up.
a Twister
That's
truck.
not just like the um okay, I guess. All right, fine. Okay,
Aha!
I guess.
Yeah,
Fine.
yeah.
It looked more to me like, what they outfit a truck that's gonna have like snowboards or skis or something on top, like a rack, like an actual rack. Anyway, that was just something that I was, you know, kind of like, what about this? Right? What about this? But also all these windows and windshields just seem impervious. I'm pretty sure, if I'm not misremembering, in the first movie, they definitely had like the windshield get broken out of one of the cars or something. Um, they
Could
had
be.
to
It's
deal
been a
with it,
while since
but
I've
yeah.
seen it.
Oh
And I
man,
mean,
such a great movie.
the windshields had plot armor until they got struck. There were times like as part of the plot they would get wrecked.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that was the case in the first one as well. It was just, you know for the plot, but yeah. So like, aside from that, it was just, those were the only like little bits, and that should go to say that was what was kind of great, is that they were really really nuanced things that I wanted to call out just for the hell of it. They probably would slip past most people. So yeah, I guess I just look at those details a little too much.
You're being pedantic, good sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah, those were probably my biggest ha moments. The plot itself was good. It was solid. I really think they did a great job with it, and I want to say that, at least in my opinion, it felt pretty similar to the formula of the first one. Like, it parallels it pretty well, in the sense that it starts out with a tragedy. So Joe loses her dad in the beginning of the first one. Kate
Yeah.
loses half of her friends in the first
Then
one.
she loses
Um,
what, there are 5 of them, so she loses 3/4 or 3/5.
sure, sure, yeah, she loses three if you're counting her along with them.
Yes, out of a
So
group of 5, 3
yeah,
of them are dead.
Javi's the one that comes back later to kind of, encourage her back into the scene. And the only reason he survived the beginning was because he was super far away
Elsewhere.
from it when it happened. He was being the tech guy in the background. Um, but yeah, they both start with that tragedy. So we kind of both deal with the losses of family or friends in an EF5 tornado. Um, and I guess, like, so yeah, with Joe being a chaser still, and Kate going to her desk job, the only thing from there was kind of, I'm stretching it a little bit here, but Bill and Joe in the first one are, they come together because he's trying to finalize his divorce with Joe, and she kind of entices him to come back into the storm chasing world. And in a similar fashion, Javi, Kate's friend, returns. He works for this new company, Stormpar, and tries to bring her back into the fold too. That was probably the biggest comparisons that you can make up until the end, when you kind of get the idea and understanding that Tyler and Kate are interested in each other. That Javi was kind of like, I do have a crush on you. And they call it out a couple of times in the dialogue as well, where one of his like team members on the Storm Bar team calls him out for like, why don't you go hang out with your girlfriend? So it's very clear that there's like some obvious infatuation there. So it kind of ties in a similar way, except in the end, she ends up with Tyler, which is kind of like how Bill and Joe end up back together, but not obviously in the same relationship styles here. So they keep that romantic arc in that similar format, but
But with less
in a different way.
overtness, like, this
Yeah.
movie doesn't even have them kiss, which
Yeah.
was, like,
Yeah.
a choice they made. Like, they shot the ending twice. One where they did kiss and one where it was just more like, "Hey, let's get going."
Yeah.
One thing I liked, like, the movie does a lot of parallels. It also does kind of the main story in reverse in a way. So in the first one with Bill and Joe, they are competing against the high tech company who's trying to steal their idea. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they're they're the bad guys, and in this one they're the bad guys as well. But Kate starts off on their team working with them
Right.
before switching sides.
Yeah, and I'd say that that plot point was probably the weakest one, in my opinion, was just kind of, like, the betrayal and the vagueness of, like, the sponsors that Javi's like, the company Javi is with is getting, right? We learn about the
Yeah.
gentleman, the sponsor, Marshall Riggs, and he's, like, one of their investors, and it sounds again, it was vague to me, so tell me if you picked up on it better. You basically learn that he's about, like, profiting off of the damaged land caused by the storms to try and, like, pick them up on the cheap while they're damaged and then resell them later at a higher price because, I don't know, probably not that expensive to clean up and then resell the land or whatever. That's really shitty. Fully understand, like, the complex here, but I just also felt like it was, like, could have been stronger, could have had just a touch of more evil to it.
So I am going to be contrarian, and I
Sure.
mean, maybe we could have spent more time with it, and we should dive into that, how we'd expand on it. But it's pretty evil as is. Well, like, yes, his
Oh, yeah.
goal is to buy up land from people after they've been devastated for him to either sell later or for him to build on and, just be a real estate, tycoon type thing. But
Yeah.
the thing is it's poignant, especially coming what, a year after Lahaina in Hawaii and the
Mhm.
fire there? Like, it took a lot, and similar things were kind of trying to go down there. And luckily, I
Oh,
think a lot of the residents have been able to keep their property and they're going to rebuild without any issues. But
interesting.
it is a real fear that, like, yeah, big money will just come in and buy up land on the cheap because people have been devastated and they, you know, are at their low point and and are not thinking things through or just, yeah, let's take some money and move on with our life.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah,
So
that
I
it
I
is
could
pretty
I would
antagonistic, yeah, for sure.
yeah, I would say we could probably spend a little bit more time on it and develop it a little bit more overtly.
And that's
But
what I
as is, it's to me, it's a part of the story that worked really well. Especially,
okay,
Javi kind of selling out his ideals to get money. Like, I mean, yeah, he wants to help people, and that's why he created Stormpar and the technology and what he was trying to do,
right.
but he also willingly agreed to help out this guy with buying up people's property.
Yeah, and I mean, even still, like you said, right, I was thinking that it would actually make sense to have it be a stronger plot point to help drive more of that competitive behavior towards the end because, again, there was only death in the beginning of the movie in a direct impact to the people that you're paying attention to and care about. Like, of course, there was devastation in the background and other people, you
Like,
know,
you didn't have an emotional tie to the hotel proprietor who wouldn't listen to reason and got swept and sucked out of the swimming pool?
nope.
Oh, you cold, heartless son of a bitch.
I mean,
Oh,
I
well,
guess I
go away.
cared a little bit
Go.
more about him than say the people in the truck because they made their choice.
Correct.
I
He
feel
made
like,
his choice too. He was very clearly told to stay the fuck down. He refused.
oh yeah, he would not get himself flat into the ground. He was not doing it. Yeah, I would have just made that a little bit of a stronger plot point overall. With
Well,
Javi's behind the
sure.
scenes stuff. They did have a point towards the end that would have made sense to have a similar scene set like the first movie where we watch the antagonists drive off in the wrong direction and then get twirled up by the tornado and thrown and exploded. And so we could have had something similar there, when we dealt with Javi's dick of a partner who was like, I don't care about the people. I was like, dude, you are asking for it right now. And maybe there's going to be another movie and he'll have his, what's coming to him then. But I was like,
Come
bro,
up and
you are a bad person and I'm looking forward to you flying away. And it didn't happen. Didn't happen.
no.
That was, yeah, a bummer. I would have changed that.
You would have killed him.
Oh, yeah. He was a
Oh.
dick the whole time. We're talking.
Eh.
This is a thriller, my guy. This is an adventure thriller style flick, but I would push it just a little bit further into the realm of scary because tornadoes are fucking scary and they really should be treated that way. Honestly, this movie to me, again, wonderful, excellent, but I did find it to be relatively wholesome.
Yeah, but the original had the same feel. It was
Yeah,
relatively wholesome.
there were a few scary moments though.
Well, sure, there's a few scary here. I mean,
Yeah,
watching the theater get, like, shredded and people ripped out.
that scene was awesome. That was
Yeah,
so good. With Tyler holding on to one of his colleagues at the
yeah.
last minute, and I was just like, it's gonna suck so hard if she gets
When
pulled
she
away.
dies. Yeah, yeah.
And he held in there. That was a genuinely like intense moment. I fully grant that when it, and I appreciated too that was a little bit of like a teeny tiny Easter egg homage, at least as far as my perspective of it, that they were in a movie theater and it got torn away from the wall. So it was like almost like watching the movie, you know? But then on top of that, there was the drive-in scene in the first movie.
Yeah,
And so they kind of they overlapped with that a little
yeah.
bit. And I
Well,
really
there's a bunch of
appreciated that.
homages like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just really cool.
Yes.
Um, but I mean, yeah. So I'm gonna say it straight how I said it before.
Yeah, go
Let
for it.
me be clear. I thought this movie was excellent. And I really don't believe it needs a rewrite. It stands very well on its own.
You're you're not wrong, but that's not the point of what we're doing.
Yes, and in the
So,
spirit of the podcast, I have what I would change, but let me tell you, it
okay.
actually took some considerable thought to come up with an alternative because the only way that I could do this is if I rewrote it. Like I would have to
Well,
change the plot entirely. Not just change aspects, but like change the whole plot.
I get you. Well, and that's why, as we always talk about, it's what we're doing is how we would do it.
Yeah.
So if the best way to think about it is somebody came to you and was like, I want you to write the script for Twisters. Go. What would you have done?
Right. So I'm assuming that was the segue into me doing my part.
Yeah, do your part.
All right. All right. So yeah. As I said, I would add to the intensity of the competitive behavior to start off with. Like Javi could still have his redemption arc, be a good guy in the end, come through, stop being a betrayer, top 10 ultimate anime betrayals. Not really. This was not even close to an ultimate anime betrayal.
No,
But
no.
I think that Stormpar should have been more antagonistic. Like they mainly relied on, just that one skeptical team member, Javi's buddy, all the way through to the finale. He was the only one that kind of came across like, oh, I'm worried about, involving Kate and this and that. And it was just kind of like, you're not even you're not even as scary as well, not scary is not the right word. Um, I'm gonna take a beat here to actually look into the old antagonist's name because I forgot. Is it like
From the
Kurt?
original Twister?
Yeah, Jonas. Jonas. Okay. Yeah, like Jonas came across in the first movie, the Carrie Yule's character. He came across as a dick, just straight up, and he had other dick team members. They were they were all pretty shitty, and so like everything
Lots
that
of
kind of
dicks.
happened with them really did. They got what was coming to them, kind of thing, right? Um. Anyway, so I think that having him be more involved and actually more of an antagonist who eventually gets eaten up by the tornado, because that's what I would do. I he'd he'd give him zoom right up in the sky. Um,
A lot of satisfaction in that, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that would kind of change the aspect of the fact that nobody really dies after the intro, which frankly bothered me. Okay, we've gone over this. I know other non-named characters definitely biffed it
Yes.
after the fact, but I would have had more mainline characters biff it as well. um, and yeah, that just felt a little off to me. So it's like I would have ventured away from that, and been a little bit more like Dum Jonas and his crew, miscalculating and going off for the wrong side before getting bit. Um, eh, yeah, it just that felt like such a significant part of what kind of happened in the first movie that I feel it's kind of not great to leave it out. So from there, I would say there would be kind of this same situation of Stormpar chasing the wrong twister towards the end. This could be like a second to the last big storm moment kind of thing where, I thought the ending, I think the ending was great and could stay as is, but like earlier in the movie before we get to that ending, that finale tornado and everything, I would say that, that moment when the tornadoes actually become like sister twisters, um, I would have actually had the twin also gain some severe momentum and start heading in like the opposite direction, but Kate realizes which one's the right one to chase over the other. And because of the skeptic teammate on the other side, he'd be like, "Oh no, I don't trust it. Like you got to go after this one instead." And so they would go after the other one. And because the cocky skeptic is overruling that, I feel like it just gives that lead into a bit of character development that's going to eventually lead to their demise. This time, instead, it would kind of lead to part of Stormpar's crew's death. I wouldn't have Javi die. Like it'd kind of be a similar experience for him that Kate had in the beginning of this movie, but instead he gets to experience it this time. Instead of being like a bystander from a distance, he's actually witnessing his team get pulled away. Like maybe somehow he happens to find a way to lock himself down like they've done in other situations in these movies, and he's the only one that manages to keep himself grounded. I think with him surviving, it kind of strikes that greed leads to destruction mentality, that metaphor, I guess.
Okay.
And then I would actually have Javi join Kate's crew at that point. Instead of it being like the same thing as Monica leaving in the first movie, when she realized that she just couldn't hack the lifestyle and could tell that Bill was still in love with Joe and everything. Um, Javi might have this moment of like being free of the guilt now that he's experienced it in his own way and understood that there was nothing that he could do. And then they move on from that. And so those would be like the core changes that I would make to the movie itself. Like as it stands right now, those would be the things that I would change from the existing script. Now I'm going to defer to you, but I will say that I actually have like an actual full rewrite idea that I'll
Okay.
dive into.
Okay. I'm excited to hear the full rewrite idea.
Sure.
But
Sure.
we'll dig into a few things for myself. The one thing I can right off the bat say I would be fighting really hard against myself to not do this, but I would want to bring back Bill and Joe in some fashion. I know Paxton's passed away at this point, so I'd probably bring in Joe. Like my first intent would probably she'd be a main character or maybe one of the characters' moms, but I'm like, as I sit with him, I'm like, that's the fucking awful idea. I would have liked to at least have a little cameo or something. Maybe Javier talks about how Professor Joe lent him, Dorothy, or was the one who gave him the walkthrough of how it all worked.
Yeah, that would
Because
actually be cool.
that's really the only tie we have between the two. They do take place in the same universe. That is confirmed. This is a direct sequel,
Mhm.
but there's just no connective tissue other than the Dorothy 4 at the beginning of the movie.
Right.
So
Right.
I would just have a little, maybe one-off line, oh, just something to give us a little more. Just like we don't need to. The movie doesn't need to be about her. We don't need a repeat of Top Gun Maverick, where she's the one who comes in and is the only one who can save the day because fucking Tom Cruise.
Mhm. Mhm.
But just a little something, just they're still living their best life out there and they're around. I would also like. Hmm, I think, yeah, what I would like to do to bring Kate back is actually probably have a tornado have come through her hometown. So she comes back
Oh,
to
sure.
check on her mom, and that's when Javi kind of finds her and tries and ropes her into his whole quest. But that would also allow me to do. I would imagine it comes, it'd probably be a couple days, maybe a week after, and Kate's mom can, can talk to her about how some friends in town are, they've been approached by a corporation. And they're thinking of selling. They're probably leaving, and she's heard about this in other places nearby recently. Just kind of dropping those hints about Riggs and what he's doing. We don't need a name drop yet, but we're building to it. So that way
Mhm.
it develops that idea of there's somebody who's profiting off, the loss of others. You're just preying on them. And then, we can draw that out a little bit more. And then, it comes later. Oh, Riggs is doing this. And that's how Javi's getting his money. And, oh, Riggs was the one who was trying to buy up like her mom's land and other people in that town.
Right,
That
sure.
way we just really introduce and show how just dickish people are trying to profit off the loss of others. It's unacceptable. I
Yeah.
mean, these people who have been through tragedy and need support. And yes, I mean, maybe you could make the argument they might be happier taking the money and running, so to speak, for an area that doesn't have this kind of tragedy. But are they really getting their money's worth of what their land and their house was? Or are they getting pennies on the dollar
Yeah.
kind of deal?
Okay.
So
I'm with it.
yeah, that's a little through line I would like to have. I would also tone down the mysticism of fucking Kate's storm ability. Like Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's a little excessive.
I don't feel like they were too heavy-handed with it, but I will say that the shot of the was it supposed to be wheat? It was it was some kind of crop that was
It was a
easy to.
cool like visual where it was like
Yeah. Yeah.
whoosh.
As it goes like really fast one direction, really fast back the other direction because they sped it
Yeah.
up just to kind of give that impression that the winds were moving that quickly in opposite directions. And it was like, oh yeah, that actually makes sense because it starts to, tornado.
Yay.
And just a quick mention too that was I believe her name's pronounced Mora uh Tierney, Kate's mom, which I hadn't seen her since Liar Liar. Actually, that's not true. I probably saw her in ER, but she played the wife in Liar Liar.
Really? I
Yeah,
thought she looked familiar.
yeah, right. Yep, yep. She plays Audrey,
Oh,
and
okay. Just hold on
sure.
real quick. We may have to do this sometime. And leave us comments if you need us to do this for you. There's another movie that came out this year called The Twisters.
Oh God.
Oh, Jesus
Oh
Christ.
dear. Okay. Yeah. Maybe. And I actually misspoke again here. It turns out doing a quick scroll through the old movie decks, IMDb, uh, there was an episode of The Office that she was in. She played Robert California's wife, Mrs. California. I knew for some reason I really remembered her like recently. So there's the answer I was looking for. But yeah, it was cool to see her in
Okay.
there. And
Yeah, looking through, like, there's a lot of things I've seen her in, but it might be Liar Liar that kind of peaked it. But I mean, there's just a number of
I've watched The Office far too much, and so that is actually the most recent thing I can, like, perfectly picture in my mind for.
okay.
Um, the other 2 interesting, cast adds as well too, Kate is sorry, for everybody, I'm so sorry I didn't mention this earlier. Kate is played by Daisy Edgar Jones. She did a really solid job, had no problems there. Anthony Ramos was Javi. Um, the ones that were even more interesting was her friend Addie in the beginning of the movie. That was Kiernan Shipka, who is Sabrina in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. Um, and then how about Paul Shear just being a random air traffic policeman who yells at
I
Tyler?
love that. I was just like, "What the fuck?" And I thought it was just gonna be like a quick 10-second thing and it was gone, and then it
Nope.
was gone, and then he came back, and it was just like, "Oh my god." It's that
He
was so
stuck
good.
around for a minute, and I was just like, "What are you doing here, bud?" Like, I was happy to see him, but it was just really silly to me. No, I like what you got there, man. Those are some good changes. Did you have any others?
As to other changes, those are kind of my major ones. I mean, they're the ones that, to me, would, for me, develop a stronger through line on the story. You know, barring like slapping my hand every time I try and bring back Joe in some fashion. Be like, oh, she's got to be the main character. No, she's got to be the main character's mom. No, no, fucking chill. We I like the idea of it being separate. She, has moved on with her life, probably
Yeah,
still doing something storm related, but she doesn't need to keep chasing. Movie doesn't have to be about her.
yeah. She might have had her glory days, right?
Yeah,
And then it's like, all right, maybe she's finally at the desk, just keeping an eye on things, Mother
agreed.
Nature style. Okay, so again, I enjoyed this movie as is. To me, to go any further than I did, it constitutes a complete rewrite. So here you go. Here are my thoughts on that. So I would keep the idea that Kate is out there, like Joe was, trying to determine a way to stop tornadoes in their tracks. She would still be a storm chaser, right? However, she would be working for an organization, and this could be Stormpar, right? Um, and that they've started to see big profits coming through from the live streaming aspect of storm chasing. Okay. And as the company experiences these heaps of revenue coming in, they start pulling funding from areas they aren't getting as much money from, and that's where the axe comes down on, say, Kate's project for trying to figure out a way to stop tornadoes and saving lives. Because stopping tornadoes means no storm, and no storm means no chasing to live stream. You feel me? So, having been laid off, Kate begins finding a way to get a team together to continue her research, and she meets Tyler along the way. I'd still have him come across as, the cocky cowboy tornado wrangler that he is, and just as arrogant in the beginning, just enough to be slightly disliked like he was here. Eventually, he and Kate would come to an arrangement, letting her tag along, and Tyler's team helps with the hardware and everything else. We'll sew that up in a nice little button and bow and whatever. So after some trial and error, enter Stormpar, who's doing the same kind of unethical bullshit, and but they're also in the live streaming sphere. Okay, and they also combine the gain from damaged land with the profit from live streaming, making them even worse than they were before. That's how I kind of thought those two would go nicely together, and Javi could still retain his role and have a potential redemption arc, similarly to how he did in this one. From there, I would incorporate the rest of the initial changes that I kind of mentioned before into this. I think I would make it even more intense, could borderline on a stronger thriller in the sense that I would definitely be having more people perish along the way that are like people that you've seen and interacted with for a while before they just suddenly
Correct.
get
You
taken
can't
away.
just have background extras get whisked off, and you're like, oh no.
I admit that you should still feel something for that, and I probably should have felt more than I did.
Eh, eh. Do you really
um,
need to worry about extra A? Maybe
eh,
extra C. He had that one line.
and maybe it was a really nice line. Maybe it was something wholesome. I don't know, but like I would just kind of kick up the thrillerness of it a bit, and I'd want it to actually instill a level of fear. I want you to feel the moment a little bit more. Um, but yeah, I mean, like just having that build up, wind picking up, hail crashing down, and it's so loud as far as just like the general scene that when the tornado actually comes through and it hits, you're just like, what the fuck? And you freak out, right? But, honestly, though, I just appreciated that this movie did it justice. Like, it still did a good enough job that is what I could come up with for like a complete rewrite in the full plot. Like, the full plot would shift to live streaming being the center of the purpose behind like the money making, and of course they wouldn't want tornadoes to be non-existent because then there's no more fun there's no more money to gain. It's still all about greedy corporations, you feel.
I like it. I like
Thanks.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I didn't know what else to do.
that's fair. I mean, as is, the movie was well done. So I like appreciate your full rewrite. I have an issue with the whole stopping tornadoes thing. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's the ultimate win, isn't it?
well, it is. And I mean, and that's what she did in this. She fucking magically stopped a tornado.
They
That none of
do
this.
try to talk about the science of it, but I'll fully admit it went right over my head.
Oh, it went over my head. That's why I turned to the trusty Google, and I'm pretty sure it was not factual. Theory, maybe. It's not out of the question.
Hmm,
The seeding and getting it to disperse. But the scale of it, even for like a small one, is far, far surpass what they showed in the movie.
sure, it would actually have to
And
be like a
most likely
plant.
would not be immediate, even if it did work.
Yeah. It wouldn't I mean, it wasn't immediate in the movie either. Definitely took a
What are you
minute to.
talking about?
Oh,
It
no,
took
it
like
took
a
a minute.
minute or two.
It took yeah, Tyler was holding on to his friend for a long enough period that I was like, "Is it gonna work?"
Correct. It just made you hang there.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I did.
it's
Uh,
still, even then, I think it would take much longer because yes, looking into it, there's a theory that maybe, but unlikely, and on a
yeah,
scale that just wouldn't make sense.
yeah, fair
And so
enough.
it's where, like, it's movie magic. I'm not going to try and be like, oh, it should be perfect and real in every sense.
We
But I
gotta
would
be
think
willing
that
to have
I
movie magic.
correct, and you have to have like there's always a suspension of disbelief or a
Mhm,
suspension of belief that you just need to have, and that's okay as long as it's entertaining and good. I would say for me, the seeding of the tornado to get it to stop is a bit too much of a stretch,
sure.
you know. And but I'm gonna the other part is I'm gonna have to leave it because the other motivating factor you then go with is she's trying to create better detection early warning systems. So it's then just a rehash of the first one of same thing, trying to study it and come up with better systems.
But it's okay if it's more advanced. At least in my opinion, it's like, I mean, hell, everything's getting AI in it these days. Why don't we just throw some AI Dorothy? Like, oh, technology's advanced so far that we'll throw AI into these little sensor
Yes.
nodes that we throw up into a tornado
And it's
and
like,
AI will do the
you have
work.
to get me to the center of the storm, Kate. You have to get me there. Release me to know what's going on.
Yeah, all right. I'm here for it. That's all I've got. How about you?
Yeah, I'm good on that note.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us this week on another episode of We're Too Literary.
If you haven't checked out Twisters, definitely recommend giving it a watch. Then come back, leave us a comment. Let us know if you agree with some of the changes we have, if you have some of your own, or if you just think it's perfect as is. Either way, just come share.
And don't forget, you can find us on all major podcast platforms and right here on YouTube. If you're listening in, please give our show a rating. And if you're watching, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Truly appreciate you being here with us, exploring this film, listening to share our takes.
Thank you so much for tuning in to We're Too Literary this week. I've been your host, Kenny,
And I'm Jonathan.
and we'll see you next time.
Bye now.